Have you ever wondered where the best greeting card ideas come from? Sometimes the answer is simpler than you think. In both of today's cards, we're going to be using this really sweet Chickadee Chirps press plate and coordinating die set. Now this is a layering press plate set, kind of builder layer, and it does come with a registration guide if you hold it the right way. And I'm going to show you how to use that shortly. But you may notice that both of today's cards are very different, and that's because I've taken inspiration from two very different ideas. My first design is going to be monochromatic, and I'm taking inspiration from a kitchen plate. And it's one of those beautiful fine bone china plates, and it's blue and white. So I want to do a blue impression on some white cardstock. Now I'm using the registration guide here to line up all my pieces, and then I can stamp them through my die cutting machine. I have a piece of watercolor cardstock, and the reason I've used that is it's going to give me a bit of an impression because it's going to be a fairly clean and simple design. Having that impression just adds something a little bit special to the card. Now I chose, obviously, a blue colored ink. You could do this in any color that you have, or multiple colors if you prefer. But one tip that I heard of recently and I thought I'd try today was to use one of the mini blending brushes to kind of help smooth out the ink on the press plates. And it, spoiler alert, is a game changer. So I just used the press plate through my Platinum 6 as you normally would, and I was very impressed at how smooth the coverage was. And of course it does have that indentation in the watercolor cardstock. So to make sure that everything's lined up here, I have that registration guide. It's just a piece of acetate with different colored outlines for each piece of the puzzle that you need to put together to create this little bird on a tree scene. And I have the guide adhered just with some low-tack tape onto the actual chase. So that way I can flip it open and back, and I know it's going to be exactly the same position each time. Another thing that I'm making sure to do is to make sure that the platen, or the clear white acrylic panel that sits on the top, is facing the same way each time. It does have the word Better Press written on it, so I'm just making sure that that's facing the same way each time. But you can have a quick peek at it and make sure that you've got it right before you run it through your die cutting machine. Now, another way that I want to build on my pattern plate inspiration here is to add more leaves to this whole design. And I can kind of see where the gaps are so that I can fill them in with the leaves. And I've moved the piece of acetate a little bit higher, but I also need to move the cardstock a little bit higher. So I've added some low-tack tape, popped the platen on top, and I can press it down and pick up my piece of cardstock, and I know it's going to be in the right spot. Problem is, I had my leaves facing the wrong way here. So I did quickly flip those around before I added the ink. One thing to be aware of, if you are sort of moving these press plates around, you don't want them hanging off the edge because you don't want them to get damaged or to damage your die cutting machine when you're rolling it through. And of course, inspiration doesn't have to just come from a fine bone china plate. It can come from anywhere. So any sort of pottery with a design pattern, or like those beautiful Chinese pots, or a magazine, any of the advertising in magazines in particular, they have really awesome combinations of colors and patterns and designs. Clothing is also a great place to look. A floral dress, a striped shirt, even the rich colors of a Japanese kimono. And another one of my favorites is bed linen. And I just want to share a quick pro tip with you here. If you've got your phone with you and you see something that inspires you, take a quick photo and create a little gallery that you can draw on when you need inspiration to make a card. I did come in and add some quick splatters with some blue paint, as well as some of the white ink spray and a sentiment that is also a press plate sentiment. My next idea is one of my favorites, and probably one that you're already doing, and using the internet to be inspired. There is a wealth of inspiration out there, but if you have something specific that you want to use, you can really narrow down your searches to make something that's going to suit the products that you want to use. So for example, I wanted to use these chickadee chirp birds. So I just go to my favorite search engine, which is just a web page, it's nothing fancy, and type in a few keywords. That's what they're called. So words like greeting card or birthday card. I thought I might want to do some watercoloring, and I definitely typed in the word birds. And once you get into the internet, then you can actually switch across and look at images only. And if there's anything that inspires you, like a color combination, a layout, then you can have a look at what you've got and adapt it to suit your products. I would never have thought to add birthday hats to these birds. I kind of feel like because it's so different to what the image looks like, it adds a really cute factor to this card and makes it a lot of fun. And you don't have to search by specific images. You can also search by themes. So say you have a stencil, or you want to do some watercoloring or some stamping or some die cutting, then, or if you want to try a technique or feel like you want to practice something, this is a really great place for inspiration if you feel like you're just sitting there looking at a blank A2 card front and just can't get started. And if you do have a specific set that you're wanting to use, then companies like Altenew will have a ton of inspiration, and it's usually attached to where you buy the product. So if you head to the shop and look at the product, you'll find all different kinds of inspiration just for that one product. So it might just give you the kickstart that you need to get creating. So I changed things up a little bit here and used a stamp in the background. I'm also using watercolor cardstock and just some pigment ink. This is the Obsidian pigment ink, which is a beautiful, rich black ink. And I used the same ink to stamp out the birds with the press plates and use the coordinating dies to cut them out. And I would recommend testing your ink before you start painting or colouring, because it can take the pigment ink a little bit of time to dry on the watercolour cardstock. So if you need to, either set it aside for a little while and then test it again, or hit it really lightly with the heat tool. I didn't do a lot of colouring here. I used some very light washy watercolours. I hand drew some hats, some birthday hats, and I didn't actually put any pom-poms on the top. I thought that might have been a little bit too difficult to cut them out, because I did actually come in and fussy cut these hats out. If you prefer not to add the party hats, that's personal choice, but I thought it added a really fun element to these designs. You can change up the sentiments however you want. Placement, I decided to put my sentiment at the top of the card, and I didn't have a lettering set that I thought would work very well to stamp out Happy Birthday, which I thought would have been really fun. But obviously, if you have an alphabet set, either die set or stamps, you can create whatever sentiment you like. So whether you're scrounging around the house for inspiration or heading to the internet, there is a ton of inspiration out there to kickstart your mojo. And all together now, we've got our bird card here, where we're inspired by using the internet search engine and the terms that we knew for the images that we wanted to use. And the first card, where I was inspired by a fine bone china plate and made a more of a monochromatic design. And I'd love to know if you have a favourite way to kickstart your card making. Let me know in the comments below. If you liked today's video, don't forget to click the thumbs up. And if you haven't subscribed, what are you waiting for? It's totally free. I've got 2 more videos here for you to enjoy, and I look forward to seeing you there. Till next time, happy paper crafting. Bye.